Rum is this wonderful, versatile, beautiful underdog of a category. So we use both raw sugar and molasses in our fermentation. And in the white rum, you really get both because it's a pot distilled white rum. So it's a double distillation, it's unfiltered, and it's unaged.
When I think of rum prior to having spoken to you and other people, I thought of like, how much can you really do with rum? And then it's like, we can do a lot with it.
Yes, exactly. It's the most versatile spirit, in my opinion.
I'm Allan Cogan. Join me as I highlight small businesses with interviews on site at distilleries, breweries, and more. My mission is to share the stories of the awesome people behind the craft. Welcome to Crafted Conversations.
Jamie, thank you for having me here at Windon Distilling, Lyon Rum. We talked about this. What do you want to be called?
The same old thing. I don't care what you call me as long as you call me. We are the Windon Distilling Company. Lyon Rum is our flagship brand and what most people know us as.
Sure.
And then, of course, we're now in our new space, which is called the Golden Hour.
Yeah, it's a pretty space. I love this. I know you've put a lot of work into this. Mm-hmm. You guys have been here for what, 12 years?
This is our 12th year.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much of that has been a learned journey?
It's been a wild roller coaster, make no mistake. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's got to be fun though.
It is. It is fun. And even when it's not fun, I remind myself that at least it's not boring.
Well, I mean, it helps that you're in the alcohol industry.
Yes.
It keeps things lubricated.
Yes, this is true.
But that leads me to my first real question. Why rum?
Oh.
Because I'm a whiskey guy. I'm a whiskey nerd. I've enjoyed my beers in college. I like the craft beer space. I love the craft whiskey space. And I've never really got into rum until recently. Mm-hmm. I've always had my Bacardis and my Captain and Cokes, whatever. But now I've seen there's a lot more craft rums out there. And they're so good and they're so different. So tell me about that.
It's a really great time to be a drinker of all types. I say this quite often because you have so much choice.
Right.
And we talk a lot about sometimes a category, whether it's food or drink, is defined by just the most well-known and not necessarily the most well-made. And I think that maybe that had been one of the issues with rum for a long time, that we only looked to a few brands. And if you enjoyed those brands, then you thought you liked rum. And if you didn't enjoy those brands, then you thought you didn't like rum.
Right.
And that was the end of the story for most people. And so rum is this wonderful, versatile, beautiful underdog of a category. And that's what attracted me to it. First of all, I wasn't the biggest rum lover in the world, but I did like rum. I had no prejudice against it. I drank rum, I drank all sorts of spirits, but it looked like the category to me that would be the most fun to jump into. And that while there's many rum aficionados, I don't know that anyone's ever called themselves a rum snob. And so I don't like making things for snobs. Fair. I don't like making things that need to be judged and evaluated on certain merits. I just want to make something that is beautiful and unique, and it's an offering. And if you like it, fantastic. And if not, that's okay too. Yeah. And so rum didn't feel like it had those barriers of entry where it was a category that was so clearly defined that you had to make something within a certain lane in order to be good or recognized.
Right.
And so it felt like an opportunity,
yeah.
Not to take over the rum world. It felt like an opportunity to offer liquid art into the category in a really fun way.
I love that. Was there any calculus going into it of like, yeah, we want to do rum because that's the fun part? Did you ever think about like, well, maybe we need to do a bourbon just because of the market? Or is
Never.
That off the table?
Not once in my entire 12 years have
I
thought about doing that for a million reasons. One, there's a ton of fantastic bourbon out there that's been made for generations.
Right.
And there's also a lot of interesting innovation in craft bourbon. But I wasn't drawn to that at all. I'm not a bourbon drinker.
Sure.
I do enjoy whiskeys, but I prefer rum, and pretty much that's what I drink now.
Yeah.
We did in the first few years make very tiny batches of whiskey, but we focused on Maryland rye because that was something that hadn't been made in half of a century in Maryland, and there's a big heritage here. So that was an interesting kind of project, but it was never going to be the focus of the distillery. In fact, when the rye started to gain notoriety in maybe the third or fourth year was when I decided, oh, people don't understand. They think that we're just making rum until we have a large stock of whiskey. And that was never the plan. And so I actually completely closed the whiskey chapter to focus 100% on rum. Because until that point, we had been like 98% rum. And then these little batches of, we did Maryland rye, we did a corn whiskey, and we did a malt whiskey simply for the joy of experimenting with it. But it was never going to be the focus. There's a lot of other people doing that and doing a great job at it. So it's not been my mission.
That's fair. Have you worked with any whiskey makers with like giving one of your rum barrels to them to say, hey, there's a rum aged?
Actually, we did something quite opposite. We gave our rum low wines to a distillery in Baltimore that makes rye whiskey, and they spirited the rum on their still, and they're currently aging it in their rye whiskey barrel.
That's interesting.
So if anything, we have infiltrated a whiskey distillery with our rum. And, we use smaller barrels, and we've had more of a relationship with brewers and coffee makers for our barrel exchange. But yeah, no, we've kind of played around with, what a whiskey maker, how a whiskey maker might distill a rum and vice versa. So that's been fun.
I mean, one of my favorite parts about craft and obviously, I mean, I know you're very involved in all the things, which I really appreciate.
Guilty.
I met you at ACSA and then at ADI and all the things, but I love the collaborative process and how much of a community this really is. Mm-hmm. And it's a kind of the rising tide lifts all boats kind of mentality that you're not really threatened by Bacardi, and Bacardi's not really threatened by you. You're doing your own thing, and it's really cool. And you have all the space to play. Mm-hmm. How much of a pride point is that, where you can make something that you've had your hands on? I mean, you own a business and you're making the thing and selling it, and people love it.
It's awesome to make something tangible, right? That you can say, this is mine. And I think it's a very big part of the human experience, is that we want to make things and put them out there. And we live in, it sounds trite, but we live in a digital age, and a lot of what we produce can be non-tangible.
Right.
I was a writer and a photographer before I was a booze maker. And as a photographer, a lot of my work, every once in a while, it would appear in a tangible newspaper, but a lot of times it was on the web. And those things, they're ephemeral. And even though it sticks around for a long time, you can't touch it.
Right.
And so not only do I get to make something that I can hand and say, this is mine, but I think I mentioned to you earlier, I have the luxury of only drinking spirits made by people that I know. And that's really cool. And so at the end of the day, there's kind of the collaboration that you see where, as you said so perfectly, a rising tide lifts all ships, because the better craft spirits are in a region, in the country, the more seriously that they're taken, and the respect for the whole industry grows. But also, these are my friends, and we're all working, but we're also playing and experimenting. And so being able to collaborate and play together and learn from each other is really fun. Otherwise, you're just, kind of operating in a silo. So it's a different type of artist collective that just is liquid art.
I have really appreciated, the more I've talked to people in this industry, how the word art has been thrown around much more. And I love that, because I mean, it's in the word name, craft, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's like distinction, what defines craft, size, et cetera. But I've seen a lot of people try to get too big for their britches. I've seen a lot of people who don't really do much, and they don't want to experiment. They just have their one thing. And I think there's a lot of happy mediums out there. When you started this, did you have an ideation of what this could be? Or did you always want to stay small and local? I don't want to have distribution of 50 states, or what, maybe you want to and be a Fortune 500 company, but you know what I mean? I have said many things over many years, all of which have come back to haunt me and bite me. Let's go through them.
Always. I mean, it's very different if you start a distillery as a business on purpose, of which the industry is largely comprised of now. I would say most people that have started in the last decade started on purpose, with a proper business plan and with proper funding. Those of us that started before 10 years ago, some still did it properly, but there was a lot more who kind of took a wild idea and said, let's see where this goes, and we'll run it till it runs out. And it might be a 1-year project, it might be a 3-year project. And so I never imagined sitting here 11 years later, for one. And when we started, we made 30 bottles of rum and opened the doors, and then promptly closed them a few hours later to go make more rum. And so I used to say things all the time. My sister, who is now, intricately involved in the business, when I first started, she was a bartender in Key West, and she would try to give me advice from a bartender. And I said, we're never going to be in bars. This is just for St. Michael's. It's for this small town. That's all I care about. Fast forward, within a few months, we were in bars. And now she runs our wholesale now, which is a huge division of our company. And we sell more bottles in wholesale than we do retail. And I never thought we'd sell any. Our amazing New York distributor once came here on a tour. The owner of the distribution company wrote me the next week asking if I'd be interested in them carrying our product, which is most people's dream, to which I said, no, sir, I have no interest in being distributed outside of the state of Maryland. Good day. And then years later, as we had grown, he called me back and said, how about now? And I said, sure. So, some people have goals and markers that they want to reach. I never had any of those. I simply wanted to make something that I was proud of, that I wanted to drink, that I could share with people and be proud to share with them. And the more that people wanted it, the more we made it. And also, you talk about the evolution of our brand and our lineup. That wasn't me just sitting around going, what great new idea can I come up with next? It was, what are we hearing? What are we seeing that's missing? What would delight people?
Right.
And there's products that we made for a while and we stopped making because either we weren't as interested in them anymore or the market wasn't. But there's never been a big, you give me way too much credit if you think I look out there and say, what do I think everybody needs and how am I going to fill it? It's way more selfish than that. Like this everything we make is because I love it. And I'm just grateful that other people do as well.
Well, that probably plays into a lot of the TLC that there's more care into a product that you like.
Yes.
100%. And I'm curious too, because I don't know the rum market as well as I do the whiskey market. Is there a massive demand or a gap in rum or is there a lot of misconceptions that you've had a joy in breaking through?
Oh yeah. I love the misconceptions in rum. I mean, I think as an industry scale, we get very frustrated because we want this spirit. Rum makers, rum lovers want rum to be respected and appreciated on its merits, not on the rums that someone had that they didn't like and they judge the category by.
Right.
However, every time I hear someone say, oh, rum's the next big thing. Oh, rum. And I'm like, please no. Like I don't want rum to explode as a category that becomes a fad that pops and does weird things and everybody's throwing everything at rum. I want rum to still exist as an alt category where people that really love it are making it and people that are excited to find out, we're able to bring them in and change their mind. And that's been very rewarding for me. My life would have been a lot easier if I chose to make a different type of spirit, perhaps a very classic whiskey or something that people understood better.
Sure.
But it wouldn't have been as challenging. And I think in the challenge and the breaking the stereotypes and changing people's minds, if not just opening their mind for a minute, but when I can change someone's mind, when they walk into the distillery and they tell me that they don't like rum and they've never liked rum and they leave not only liking rum, but loving it and maybe with a couple of bottles, I just feel like my mission in life is complete.
I can feel Brad over here. Off camera, Brad is on set and he tried some rum. He's not a rum drinker and he liked it. So Jamie wins.
Yeah, it's a great challenge. I mean, it's a delight to have someone walk through the doors that loves rum, has respect for rum, understands the category.
Yeah.
But it is way more fun to have somebody come in that is, biased and skeptical. And we don't get that many opportunities in our day-to-day life to change the minds of grown adults.
Right.
And it is a joy, especially when it's in a fun way and they have nothing to lose. It's not, sometimes we wrap up our identity in the things that we consume and buy and the brands that we wear and are part of us. I mean, everything from the car you drive to the place you live, it says something about you.
Yeah.
And so I think what often happens is that people have this misconception that rum is not sophisticated enough. And if they are a sophisticated drinker, that they reach for certain other spirits. And that rum is, too light and fun and it's not for them. And then when they understand the care and the thought that goes into it and then they taste it, at the end of the day, it's good if you like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I think is like for me, breaking through the misconceptions of rum versus whiskey is the creativity side. Is that when I think of rum prior to having spoken to you and other people, I thought of like, how much can you really do with rum? And then it's like, oh, you can do a lot with rum.
Yes, exactly. It's the most versatile spirit, in my opinion.
Okay.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting to hear people's misconceptions about the process, because when it comes to whiskey or rum or tequila or any spirit that you're fermenting and distilling on a pot still, it's very, very similar.
Yeah.
The difference is common, all sorts of, there's a million different ways to get to the same, or to get to a different result from your fermentation, from your yeast, from your still choice, from your cuts. But it's not that we're doing two totally different things. Somehow people think that making whiskey is this wildly different thing than making rum. It's just that one is made from grain and one is made from cane. Now, that's an oversimplification, but
Sure.
for all intents and purposes, it's not that different. So you have a clear, pure spirit that comes off the still, and you can go in a million directions with it. And the reason I think that rum is the most versatile is because I've managed to make about 12 different rums from one rum that are all wildly different flavor expressions. And so I choose to use rum as my base for everything we do, whether it's a liqueur, or whether it's a proper rum, instead of a neutral spirit. So
Sure.
most people would probably argue that, GNS is the most versatile.
They'd be wrong.
But, are you bringing character to it? And how are you layering that? And then, of course, style. It's all about the style that you're going after.
Was there anything out in the market when you were starting, or maybe even now, that you look to or up to as like they're doing something that's really cool. I aspire to that, or I want to do that.
Yeah. When we first started, I really felt like we were in a silo. The industry was so small. There were definitely people doing interesting things in American rum, but very quietly, or at least not as widely celebrated.
Right.
So no, I didn't have anyone that I looked to and said, that would be great. If anything, had I known about some other brands that existed at the time, I probably would have been intimidated and daunted and saying, well, why am I doing that if someone already is?
Right.
For example, now we're very good friends with the owners of Montagna and know Karen, the founder, very well.
Sure.
I didn't even know she existed when we started. and she had been making rum prior to us opening. So had I looked at that and said, oh, well, someone's already doing it, I might have thought it wasn't as interesting. In
Right.
my world, the closest distilleries to us operating at the time here, we're on the Eastern Shore in Maryland, there was one gin distillery in DC. There was a whiskey and brandy distillery in Virginia. And I'm sure there's some stuff going on in Pennsylvania, but there was no community that was readily apparent. And so it felt just like an opportunity, like not no one was doing it, but it kind of felt like no one's doing this. How fun. Let's see how we can explore. And so, of course, aware of the big rums out there. And I remember in the first couple of years when we started experimenting with infusions,
Sure.
we would go out and try to find other craft rums that were remarkable in that category. And then how do we make ours different? So when we made a coffee rum, it was like, okay, these are the 3 coffee rums that we think are really good and really beautiful, but we don't want to be anything like them because someone's already doing that. So how do we make something that adds to the spectrum of what a coffee rum can be like, but isn't like these 3 that we love and respect?
Right.
So it's always been kind of a dance. And I think that's the art side of it, because I don't know any artist that wants to make something that somebody else is already doing,
Right.
or that wants to copy something. There's a lot of integrity in saying, I've made this on purpose and it's mine and it's unique.
Yeah.
And it's not better or worse. It's just different. And being different is the opportunity as far as I'm concerned.
Is there a balance there with like the bottom line of the business side, where like how much room do you have to experiment? Because I'm always
Right.
curious. A lot of these craft places are doing some awesome things.
Yeah.
But then it makes me go, can you sell it?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because if
Yep.
you want to do something that's really wild and wazoo and you love it, but
Mhm.
the market's like, I don't know what the hell that is.
Exactly.
Is there, what kind of tight?
I'm sure there is. I've never thought about it.
Okay.
I
Good.
don't.
No, good for you.
But
I love that answer.
I have the luxury of that because we're incredibly small.
Sure.
We, until only a few years ago, we sold every drop of rum we made, and we're always in a deficit because we were tiny. We started with 2 26-gallon pot stills. It didn't matter. We used to joke that if we don't sell it, at least we'll have rum to drink. And to the point where I couldn't drink my own rum for a couple of years because I needed to sell every bit of it.
Right.
It's only recently that I'll go, oh, I love this bottle. I'm going to take 1 or 2 home for myself.
Right.
It was more like, this needs to be sold. We need to pay the bills. There's definitely things now with this new space that we think about that might not be right for something I would try to send out to distribution, but we want to make it because we want to play with it. Some other different liqueurs or infusions. But I'm sure people wrestle with that all the time. One thing that we were lucky, again, with being very small and being predominantly retail, we were focused on, you come in, you sample it, you buy it, you immediately get feedback. And so when you're making tiny 30-bottle batches of rum,
Right.
You learn a lot from your customer. I think the different position is a company that comes in and has an idea of what they want to make, puts out 1,000 cases and finds out people don't love it the way they do.
Right.
That feels risky. That's not something that I ever had the luxury to even think about doing. Everything we've done was small and kind of test. And even products that I said, I think we're good on this. Let's archive this. Years later, people are demanding, bring back for example, we have a black rum that people love. And now we bring back one batch a year. And so you listen to your customers. I think a lot of people, I was just reading about marketing strategies for artists because it's very different than for businesses that aren't based in art.
Sure.
And the idea that most often people will create a product and then they will bring in a marketing team to try to market said product to people, which is very different than paying attention to what you think people want or what you're hearing and then creating something to fill that need.
Right.
And so if I held myself as the ultimate customer in our early days, and even now, I do what speaks to me. And I know that there are other people like me out there. So even though it can come across as, I just do what I want and I think I'm so smart, it's not. It's that I know people like me that are not interested in this, or this is happening, but that's not for me. And we don't have to chase every trend. I've never chased any trend, in fact.
Sure.
I kind of, even if I think a trend is a good idea, if it's a trend, I'm like, we're not doing it.
I agree.
And I have to explain that to my team. But I also don't have, I don't have a board. I don't have shareholders. I don't have anybody that's telling me I must put a flavored vodka product in a can in order to meet the bottom line.
Right.
So it's never even been a question.
And that's why I love that freedom. That's a fantastic answer. And I can tell you're proud about it.
I am.
And it's awesome.
Because it's really hard. It's actually, I didn't have the luxury of choosing. It wasn't like this big fork in the road where we could go this way or that way. It was like, why are we working so hard to try to make something that isn't unique and isn't remarkable to us? And now 12 years in, I look back and I say, I never compromised once. And I don't know many people that can say that. I think, and I still respect, because running a business is really hard and you have to make really tough decisions all the time. But there's never any product I've put out just to pay the bills. There was that shirt that was very popular for a long time, and it was like, vodka pays the bills, or whatever it was. You'd see it at the conferences.
Yep.
And we all laughed, but we also all knew that certain times you're just selling this to fund this other thing. But this is what we've loved from day one. Yeah. There's never been something that came out just to sell it. That's not the point.
I love that. How, because you're the owner and you have a distiller. Are you working with him in tandem? Are you letting him kind of do his own thing? Are you trading off that role? How does that work?
Yeah. So it's been a very long time since I came in before dawn and started the stills. A couple of years, in fact. And so we have a brilliant head distiller. His name is Brett Steigerwalt. And he has been with us at least 8 years. It might be 9. I lose track of time. And Brett has really shown more passion than I could ever have hoped for our company, for our mission, for American Rum, for rum and its integrity and education. And so Brett is this year, hopefully, able to run a little bit more wild with his passions for developing different processes, creating a bit of a compendium of what American Rum can be.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of friends who are focused. Our favorite people are distilleries that are crazy enough to only make rum. That's what they do, and that's their favorite thing, and they lay it all on the line in the name of rum. And so when you have that community, and it's growing, it's still very small. So we talk about there's a lot more American rum than there used to be. But there's still very few exclusively American rum distilleries. We're in a small minority with that. But when you look to them, we're all wildly different. So I think it was at ACSA last year where I had a rum happy hour.
Yes.
And we had Montana there. And we were talking about like all the different types of American rums, that they're all wildly different, and celebrate that. So now Brett is working more on some finishing projects, finally getting to the point where he can be a little more creative, because as much as, we have a very set portfolio, we have 6 year-round rums, and then we have 6 or 7 seasonals. I am not interested in releasing the next thing, the new thing. A lot of people ask me all the time, what's next? What's new? And I say the same delicious rum that we've been making for 12 years. And so I'm not super interested in innovating our product line, but I am interested in allowing Brett to explore some barrel finishes and some distiller select projects, especially that illustrate the evolution of a spirit with different finishes, different oak, different time, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you gone into you said finishes, that piqued my brain, my whiskey nerd brain.
Yeah.
Have you gone into trying different types of finishes with rum?
Only one,
Okay.
really. We had an anniversary edition for our 10-year anniversary last year. And we exclusively age, only one of our rums is aged. And I always toe the line of saying rested versus aged because it's 2 years.
Okay.
It's in smaller barrels and they're former bourbon barrels. But we had procured a Calvados barrel that we were really excited about. And so we took some of the Sailor's Reserve, that's this 2-year rum, ready to bottle. But instead of bottling it, we finished it in a Calvados barrel. It was our first time working with such a large barrel. And a year went by, and then another year went by. And this is a testament to Brett's patience because I want immediate results. I want to drink that now, which is why I love white rum so much. It's instant gratification. And but after 3 years, Brett said, it's perfect. It's ready. And so we then had our oldest rum ever, which was 5 years. And it was 3 years in the Calvados cask after 2 years in its regular American oak. So that was our first, and it was lovely. And so we're looking towards, we just had a meeting about this actually on Thursday about a couple of different barrels he's identified. And it's just one of each and what he wants to do. And I had my opinions, but generally I'm going to let him do what he thinks is interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
My first interaction with any kind of cask finished rum was with Cotton and Reed.
Yeah.
And they make some great stuff.
Yes.
I think it was their sherry was just phenomenal to me. And I was like, and at that point, I was like, I didn't know you could do this with rum. Obviously, you can put anything in a barrel. But
but there's certain things that are going to play better.
You're right.
Based on your rum profile and what you're going for. But yeah.
Is there anything that you have been itching to do that you have in the back of your mind that you want to, but you haven't had the capacity or the resources, or you're because it sounds like you're just able to just do what you want, which I love to hear.
No, I'm really happy. I love everything we're doing. This is exactly what I want to be making. Some of the seasonals that we don't have all the time, I want to find a way to make them year round.
Yeah.
Because I love them and I want it all the time. I don't want to have to wait for my coconut rum or we're in pineapple season right now, which is not a real season. It's a thing we do here where we slice and dehydrate pineapples every single day, all day long in order to get enough dehydrated pineapple to make our overproof pineapple rum, which we never have enough of. So I would really like that to be a year-round product because it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And no, I think I'm most just excited about starting to share these spirits that we've had for the last, decade in cocktails in this space with people, because I think we've been so focused on just straight rum and the integrity of what's in the bottle for so long and telling people to go home and make a drink or drink it neat, that now it's really fun to play around with it. So we have another distiller who, her name's Erica, and she has a baking background. And so since she's been on the team, she brings a lot of her culinary experience. And I've always thought we were a very culinary focused distillery because everything we do involves whole ingredients. We are smoking our own caramel. We're using, fresh picked berries, things like that. And so she started to work on a couple of liqueurs that we don't plan to take to market, like I was saying, but we want to use here at the bar. And so seeing her play around with ginger and nutmeg and cloves and infusing things like that has been really fun.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So when I got it, this is the heart of the question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
My favorite?
What's your go-to?
It's got to be white rum. It's always the white rum for me.
And I knew that answer before I asked that, but I wanted it on camera. I'm so curious about that.
Okay.
Why?
Because the white rum, every single bottle on this wall is the white rum.
Yeah.
Just with other lovely things layered onto it, whether it's time in a barrel or delicious blackberries or botanicals. A classic daiquiri is always my favorite cocktail.
Okay.
And so our white rum makes a killer daiquiri, fresh lime juice, little simple syrup, shaken, done. So I will always love our white rum, and it's really versatile. We're on the Eastern Shore. We're in the land of crushes, which is the summer cocktail. It's generally vodka and fresh orange juice. I do rum crushes with grapefruit juice. And so for me, it's like every cocktail that exists, I have a rum version of it. And so the white rum is my favorite, although I did pour myself some of our anniversary rum because it is dwindling in supply. So anytime I get to drink that, it's a good day. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think that's good. That's a good point though. It's a good foundational spirit that goes through all your stuff. And I don't know, there's no playing around with the mash of like, you have to use sugarcane that's what makes rum?
Oh, well,
Or
yes and no.
Okay.
So rum has one rule. Do you know that?
Educate me.
There's only one rule of rum is the big trivia question. So many spirits have so many rules.
You're
and
right.
You probably know with whiskey
Yep.
that varies on the style, et cetera. And with rum, there's one rule. And that rule is it must be distilled from a fermentation of sugarcane. However, it can be molasses, which is very common. It can be sugarcane juice. It can be a hybrid. And then, of course, you can use whatever yeast you want, fermentation style, stills, aging, unaged, sweetened, unsweetened, flavored, not. It's the world is your oyster after you use, sugarcane. So we don't change our rum wash ever. It's one recipe for every rum. So often people will get confused in tasting and they'll think that maybe the dark rum is a different distillate, but it's really important to me that the white rum is honored and respected for being so good, because you can't get an exceptional aged rum with a non-remarkable white rum, in my opinion. So everything matters. And I'm a big proponent of an aged rum.
Yeah.
So even our oldest rum being 5 years, or in general 2 years, I like the distillate to speak for itself.
Yeah.
I'm not relying on the barrel to create some kind of magic. It's just layering another element of flavor for me.
Yeah.
So when I go to someone else's distillery, especially rum distilleries, the first thing I want to drink is their white rum. And that's my barometer for if I want to keep going.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I one of the first distilleries I talked to, they said that if your new make isn't good, barrel will not make it better.
No.
And there are so many distilleries out there that don't showcase their white dog moonshine, or their corn whiskey, or their white rum. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Rum distilleries probably are proudly sharing their white rum.
Some do, and it's so hard. Like, we do make a lot of generalities.
Yeah.
And that would be my disclaimer. Is anything I say is also
right.
There's someone who is doing the opposite. But no, in general, people don't, because the public in general sees white rum as a commodity.
Sure.
And so it's a spirit that, this is your mixer. No, not at all. Yes, true. Most people aren't going to sit with a glass of white rum and just sip it. But the people that will are the same people that drink grappa, that drink mezcal or tequila.
Yep.
So some clear spirits are revered. And the reason I believe white rum hasn't been is because of the prevalence of commodity white rums that are meant for mixing.
Right.
Because they don't taste awesome on their own.
Yeah.
And so let's cover it up with things. And it's also why people think all rums are sweet, or all rum drinks are sweet, is because often a distillate that isn't meant for luxuriating over is buried in sugar and mixers, and then you have a drink.
Right. So for any psychopaths out there who are sipping Bacardi, neat.
But to each their own.
Right. That's fair.
And that's the thing too. Right. But it's just not as common.
Right.
But it's just not as common for people to sip clear spirits neat. It's really more stereotypical and more common to drink the darker the spirit, the more that someone thinks it's ready to go.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't need anything. Whereas if it's clear, we got to add something to it. And that's just not the case. Yeah. It doesn't have to be.
Hey y'all, Allan Cogan here with Crafted Conversations. If you want to support the show and the mission of sharing the stories of craft, head over to buymeacoffee.com/craftedcombos. I'd really appreciate throwing a couple bucks my way to help me pay for travel, the equipment that I use, the time that I spend editing, all the software that I use. I really appreciate any support you can give me. And if you can't afford a couple bucks, at least give me some feedback, or go over to your YouTube and subscribe, or follow us on Spotify. Anything helps to make sure that we share the story of craft and give these small business owners a little limelight and get them out on a platform that really showcases what they're doing. I can't do this without you guys or your support, so I would really appreciate you pitching in and helping out. So I'll see you out there, and I really appreciate it. Cheers.
Well, I know we have some port here.
So much rum. Yes, it's hard to choose. I could afford you 18 things.
No. Well, and full disclaimer, I have had your white rum and your dark rum. Yes. I haven't had any of your other stuff.
Okay. Well, those are our most widely known and made. But I always say they're getting better every day, because we get better. We make tiny batches. We distill 5 days a week. 52 weeks a year. And so with tiny stills, you're constantly iterating, you're constantly improving your processes. And our rum has changed a lot over the years. I'm proud of everything we've done, but it has gotten better and better with every year, with every level of improved ingredients that we're sourcing, the team, quality control, et cetera, and vatting. We used to make bottle a batch and start from scratch again. I mean, those were the first couple of years. And it's hard to maintain consistency in that regard, even if you're doing everything the same.
Sure.
So now I think, batch 324 is far more like batch 224 than say batch 224 was like 223.
Right.
There's some consistency, but yeah, I love all of our rums.
And I told you before, I was never the biggest rum person.
Yeah.
But I love how different, in a good way, your white rum is, because it kind of breaks my brain. We talked about this off camera.
How so?
It has a little bit of a tequila note to it.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the most common feedback from people that we get.
Yeah, it doesn't have that manufactured rum taste that makes me think of college, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why Brad doesn't like rum. And we fixed him today.
Right. Well, we cannot judge anything by its worst.
No.
We have to go to the best of a category to start to understand.
Right.
I think our rum is the best, but it's just one style. So we use both raw sugar and molasses in our fermentation. And in the white rum, you really get both because it's a pot distilled white rum. So it's a double distillation. It's unfiltered and it's unaged. So it is very much the moonshine of rum in, I think, the most flattering way. So I say that to people, not to scare them, but to prepare them that this clear spirit looks innocuous, but it is wild. It is grassy on the nose. There's a nice creamy mouthfeel from slow, careful processing, but there's no sweetness. There's nothing added.
Yeah,
it's incredibly pure, but it's wild. It's grassy, and so I think the grassiness is what people then associate with tequila, and maybe also because tequila is one of the few clear spirits that we know of that has a wild bouquet and a salinity and a minerality to it.
Yeah, if
we haven't been exposed to bold white rums or drank moonshine,
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious. I think the next one is the barrel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious as we move along because I love barrel flavor.
Yeah.
Because I'm a whiskey nerd.
Yes.
I'm biased.
Yes.
And I love an aged rum.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I could sip on that and enjoy it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a lot there to play with in cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see that in a
citrus and everything just explodes in there.
Yeah. I want a daiquiri.
Yeah, I always want a daiquiri.
What time is it?
The white rum is great. The biggest thing I can't stand, actually, more than really, really bad sugared bad rum, the rum that everyone thinks is on the bottom of the shelf in a giant plastic container.
Right.
That's not really my pet peeve. My pet peeve is an artist who takes care and serves me a neutral and boring white rum because I just see lost opportunity.
Sure.
So I think rum shouldn't be neutral. It should smack you in the face. That white rum should tell me a story. I think we're starting to talk a lot more about honoring the terroir in spirits than we ever have.
Yes.
And I think white rum should smell like a sugarcane field. And years ago, I took the entire team down to Louisiana to visit our sugar mill and to tour the fields and to tour the mill while they were processing. And the first thing everyone said was, it smells like our rum in here. And I was like, exactly. When the sugarcane is being pressed, that's what the rum smells like. And it's awesome.
I love that. Have you had any ability, or how do I want to say this? Rum is such a colonial historical thing of America, and that we've kind of lost that. We've kind of went back to rye and bourbon, and bourbon is America's spirit, and that's fine. But colonial rum was a massive part of our founding. Right.
It was everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. I actually gave a talk at our local library this past summer about rum and the American Revolution.
Yeah.
A lot of things people don't realize, but I think, without spending another hour talking about the history of rum.
Tell me about George Washington.
I think one of the main reasons, rum has also quite a sordid history. So we weren't making very fine rum in very fine ways, in the colonial days. But with the advent of farming being industrialized, we looked at corn and all of those grains as being a product of our country, our agricultural product. But it's as if people don't realize that sugarcane is grown in America. It's just not as widely grown, right? So we have Louisiana and Florida and Alabama, and I think maybe even one part of Texas that still has some sugarcane mills operating. Not as many, but so quite commonly people think that rum can only be made in the Caribbean because they assume that that's where all the sugarcane is. So there's this fallacy that sugarcane isn't a part of our agricultural system in America, but it's just not as wide. So I think that had a huge, I don't know, but I would say that has a huge part to play with how bourbon and whiskey became such an Americana spirit, and rum went by the wayside. So we're really proud because there's no definition of what makes American rum, but for us, it's got to be American sugarcane. And so we don't have sugarcane here in Maryland, but we look to our neighbors in Louisiana and we're proud of that.
Well, and on top of that, you're on the East Coast in historic St. Michael's, Maryland, where, I mean, a lot of colonial history here.
And a lot of rum running up and down the Chesapeake. Yes.
So I mean, that's pretty cool. Yeah. You're bringing it back. I'm going to try the barrel age because
So I hope you like it because the barrel notes are soft. So something like, you correct me, but don't they say in whiskey that 80% of what we taste in a whiskey is the barrel? I think it's more like 80% of what you taste here is the rum and about 20% is the barrel. It's a big change from the white rum to the sailors, but it's only 2 years in that, 10-gallon barrel and it's soft.
You're right. It's much more rum forward, but the nose and the first time it hits my mouth, it's very different. And then it goes, oh, but I'm still rum. I like them. See, I could sip on this too, and this would make a good Manhattan for me. Yeah.
So I love the Sailors just on its own. People have often said, well, how long do you want to age it? And so when we were 2 years old as a distillery, they were like, okay, your rum is a year old. It'll get older as you get older. So when we turned 5 and 7 and 9, everyone was like, where's that 7-year rum? And I was like, no, I think they finally understand that we're committed to young American rum because after 11 years, we could have an 11-year rum if we wanted.
Sure.
But I'm not interested in that.
Okay, so I'm curious about that. Have you thought about maybe just having, because you do a smaller, I guess you couldn't do that long on a small barrel.
No, you do have to be careful about over oaking in a smaller barrel. But no, I love it how it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not that curious to go 3-4 years. And I'm sure it would be lovely.
Yeah.
And people would like it even more. But it kind of comes back to saying, we're going to stick with this.
Yeah.
This is not what you're used to. You're not used to a 2-year rum that tastes like this. And if you like it, great.
Yeah.
There's nobody else doing that thing.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's fair. I think if I was in your shoes, just because of the way my brain works, I'd want to have that one barrel that I lose.
Yeah.
Just for funsies.
Yeah.
But if you're not interested in
I think Brett's more like that. Our distiller's like that. And I'm going to let him do that. And we have a little bit of the luxury now because we have a little bit of rum left over every year, so we can stick some away. But before it was like, no, we're selling everything we got. We're not sitting on that for what's going to happen in 5 years.
Is there even an American rum in the market that is that aged? I can't think of anything that's not Jamaican.
Know. I mean, I have not kept up to date. I know that Richland and Privateer do some longer aged rums right now. I think I don't know if it was a trivia question or I was under the gun, I might say that we could find a 6-year for sure.
Yeah.
And it might come out of one of those distilleries, but I'm not sure who's focused on long aging because no, I mean, there's only a few rum distilleries in the country that are over 10 years old of making rum. But I'm not sure. That's the thing. I'm so aware of what my peers are doing in one way, but I don't. You can't listen to everything because it affects your ability, I think, as an artist. If you're paying too much attention to what other people are doing, you should be aware. I'd much rather listen to what's inside and what I'm hearing from my immediate people than what's going on anywhere else, right? Because it even if you don't think it does, it absolutely colors the decisions you make, for better or worse.
Yes, and that's not just it's every part of your life.
Yeah,
every decision
absolutely. And you can't listen. You should be aware, but not too aware.
Right. I've tried to unplug myself from a lot of places, especially in our social media driven world. And it's like I want to live in a cabin in the woods. Like, leave me alone.
Well, I'm sure you enjoy listening to podcasts and watching shows.
Some.
But exactly. And if you might be aware of what someone does stylistically, but it's like, oh no, I don't actually know if they've done this topic. And then if you research and it's like, oh, well, should I not do that conversation because someone else did it? And no, you just kind of, you ask the questions, you do the things that speak to you, and that's it.
I don't think we talked about this, and I don't really talk about this on the show that often, but I've been podcasting. I start to hate that word, but I've been doing this since right before COVID, end of 2019, 2020. And I started with, it was a current affairs show with my producer, a good friend from high school. Him and I both worked in policy in the DC area.
Okay.
And it was before things got really, really stupid. And we're like, well, it's just hold ourselves accountable and have a conversation about things that are happening in the world and nuance and politics and whatever. And we very quickly learned that, one, we're not going to get any traction unless we like become mean, or have a real hot take. But we loved nuance and like let's actually look at all the things and have a discussion about it. No one wants to watch that, so we're not going anywhere. We had a well-produced, good show, but it didn't matter. Mom loved it, but then we of course got ourselves burnt out as COVID kept going and we became remote and politics continued to get silly. We were like, we don't want to do this. We're too plugged in, and we both are whiskey nerds and we both love talking about this. I thought, what if I just cold call a distillery and see if they want to talk to me? So that we pivoted everything, and now it's like I can have this conversation with you about something that you're proud of. It's a small business doing awesome things, and everything outside these walls doesn't matter. That's what I love about this. So this is a breath of fresh air for me too.
Good.
And I get to drink when I visit.
And the thing is, like you alluded to earlier, I'm very involved in our industry, maybe a little less than I used to be.
Sure.
When the industry was smaller, I found myself at the forefront of it a bit more, especially locally. Maryland had no distilling industry, a decade ago, hardly. And now it's super robust. And so it's wonderful to be part of that community. But then there is a point where you have to step back and say, that's all wonderful, and we've changed some laws, and we've gotten together, and we have people we can call when we have questions. But all that matters is what's happening here.
Right.
What I'm proud of, what my team enjoys making, and what the people that come through these doors experience. It doesn't matter what someone's doing somewhere else. Like it's all noise at that point. And same with the industry. So you go to these conferences, you get to see all these people, and you're so excited, and you try some things, but then you don't watch their social media, and you don't pay attention to what awards they're getting. You're proud of them or happy for your friends.
Sure.
But it doesn't affect the decisions you're making. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that I'm very proud of is that we've never made a canned cocktail. If I had $1 for everyone that told me I should make a canned cocktail, I would be a millionaire.
I bet.
And I truly understand that people like them. I don't want to offend anybody that really enjoys canned cocktail.
Sure.
I do not. I am diametrically opposed to the idea of fast, convenient drinking. I think you should drink on purpose. I think the art of a cocktail, I think to have a dark rum and ginger beer freshly made of rice is always going to be better than a dark rum and ginger beer in a can. But that's one of the things that's very popular and just catapulted in the industry to the point where I was like, well, if everyone's doing it, why would we do it? There's it's not like you can't get one. It's not like I have to be the only one to, if that's what you want, it exists. So there's all these decisions that everyone's doing and everybody and all consumers want.
Right.
Like you were saying, like a contentious, wild podcast that might get ratings and this, but also there's someone who doesn't want that.
Exactly.
There's someone that wants what you're selling and what you're giving. And you just have to find those people. And it is harder sometimes, but it is far more rewarding.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of, and it goes into what I'm doing now is I'm searching for the people who want to listen to the stories of people behind the craft rather than me sit here and talking about tasting notes and tell you how your product tastes.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, there's a room for that.
Yeah.
Or for reviews and rankings and whatever, and that's fine. I don't want to.
And like, is there really? People are always asking me, what medals we have. And we entered a lot of things in the early days because it was awesome to get peer feedback as you're learning. But once I was confident, I was like, I don't need you to tell me that this is a gold medal rum because I know it is. I know how many bottles I sell. I know how many people love it, and I'm proud of it. And so there's some element of participating in the community of conversation and getting your spirits in front of people that you care about and to talk about it. But I don't want to be rude, but I don't really care about somebody's tasting notes.
Yeah.
Because your tastes are different than my tastes are different than anyone's taste. So it's good if you like it. I just have to find the people that like it.
Well, and I have this, my mantra has been while doing this is your accessibility and your story as I'm sitting here at your space with you drinking your product makes the product in my mind taste better.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
There's something there in the bias of the brain that like, I know that this was taken care of and made by you. Yep. And so I don't know. That's what I love about this.
That's exactly why I think farm to table dining, people knowing, going to farmers markets, going to distilleries, going to breweries, you have a sense of it. If you like the place and you like the people, you are going to like the product better. You could give me the best spirit in the world. And if I know that it's made in a questionable manner or by somebody that I don't care for and I don't think it's made with love, it's not going to taste good to me.
Right. Well, speaking of things that are made with love, what's the next thing I should try?
Okay, so the next thing is our dark rum. And the dark rum is our flagship. Yes, it's what everyone knows us for. So the
Right.
first two rums you had were what we would call pure rums, nothing added except with the sailor's time in a barrel. The dark rum has a touch of homemade smoked caramel, which felt like a really weird way to do it 12 years ago. Now I think a lot more people are cooking their own caramel.
Sure.
I can't tell you how many times people have gotten this rum and be like, okay, so you add caramel coloring and flavoring. And I'm like, God, no, we would never. Why would we? If you see our stills, they're like dripping super slowly. Why would we add anything? But we cook sugar into a smoked caramel and fold it in. It gives it this beautiful, rich butterscotch note. There's absolutely no spice in our dark rum, which makes it an outlier. So it's unspiced, unaged, homemade smoked caramel finish. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's the one weird thing, because when I hear dark rum, I think of spiced.
Everybody does.
But there's no rules for nomenclature in rum, right?
And that's why it's tricky, because you could pull, not only could you pull a bunch of rums, but you could pull a variety of dark rums, and they're all different manners. Some are aged, some are not, some are spiced, some are sweetened, some are a hybrid.
Yeah.
And it is a big problem. And I'm not helping by naming my rums white rum and dark rum, but there's been a lot of conversation in the rum world about that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You know, also, because we can't judge it by its color.
Right.
So I'm just not that creative when it comes to naming things. So our rums don't have any clever names. It's like, if it's blackberry rum, it's called blackberry rum. Coconut rum is coconut rum. So I am part of the problem in not being more specific about my dark rum, but we do say on the label a bit more about it. And so that helps people. So it's both, cuts both ways too, because someone who loves a spiced rum is like, ooh, give me your spiced rum. And I have to say, it's not spiced overtly, but you will probably pick up notes of molasses and baking spice on the finish, but not on the nose. And then there's people who are like, I can't stand spiced rum. I'm like, oh, good. Here's a dark rum where you're not going to get that.
Right.
Or they want it to be aged. They look at it and they say, it's so much darker than the sailors. It must be aged twice as long.
Yeah.
And I say, it hasn't touched oak at all. And some people are very disappointed. Someone like you might have looked at it and gone, okay, if I like the sailors, this one's going to give me a lot more.
Right.
And it's none. Not. But then there's people like myself who don't like very old products, or people who are allergic to oak. So there's a lot more people that I'm meeting who have an allergic reaction to American oak.
Yeah.
And so it makes them their mouth itch or their face flush. Yep. And I'm very aware of what goes into our rum, because I'm very aware that it goes into people's bodies. Yeah. And all of our rums are all natural. They're all gluten-free, which is important to me. And so I think we need confidence in what we're drinking, especially with all of the negative propaganda these days about drinking in general.
Yeah.
If you choose to drink alcohol, you should be able to choose the purest, cleanest, best made alcohol possible, and you should have that information at your fingertips.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I had a bottle of this. I'm out. But
it doesn't last long.
No, it didn't. But I think you guys had a stand at the Maryland Distillers Guild thing that they did.
Yeah.
Where was that this last year?
There's like Spirits of Maryland. There's one in Southern Maryland. There's one in Frederick.
I think
there's a couple we do.
It was at the Air Museum thing.
The Patuxent.
Yes.
Yeah, Pax River. Yep.
Yeah. I tried your dark rum for the first time there. I had your white rum prior.
I think Brett was there. Brett and his wife Willoughby were there. Yep.
And that's where I met Brett for the first time. And I bought a bottle there because I was like, this is fantastic.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Because I'm very shy of very sugary things.
Yes.
And when you describe this, it sounds like it's going to be a sweet bomb, a gut bomb.
Yep.
And it's not.
No.
It's very drinkable. I can have a glass of this and not feel like I just sucked on a Jolly Rancher.
Absolutely. The flavor is really intense.
Yeah.
But it's for every ounce and a half pour, it's less than 3 grams of sugar.
Oh, wow.
So, you got, and that's the thing I have to constantly reiterate to people, that the white rum is 0 sugar. Mm-hmm. And people don't fully, I guess, understand the fermentation part of why rum doesn't start as a bottle of sugar and then just have more layered on it. It starts, all distilled spirits are sugar-free and gluten-free. It's what we add to it. And sugar isn't an enemy if it's used appropriately. I mean, sweetness is divine. It's going overboard, and it's knowing which rums you can choose that are no sugar or low sugar versus how much is added.
This is 100% not related to you at all, but it just made me think of it. I think it's interesting. I talked to a place before I was doing video called Man Cave Distilling in West Virginia. Okay. And it's a father, daughter, and son team just doing whatever, and they're making some interesting things. But they won an award. I forget what it was. Was it the SIP Awards? Something. It was for innovation.
Yeah.
And they distilled raw maple syrup.
Oh, interesting.
And there's not a category for that.
Yeah.
So they had to invent one, and they called it ambrosia.
Oh.
And I got to try it. It just by itself, it has this very drying sensation in the mouth.
Yeah.
Not much flavor. It just tastes like some raw maple syrup.
Interesting.
But they distilled it, and they have vats of it, and they're trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
And it just made me think. I don't know why my brain popped into that, but I thought it was really interesting that innovative side, because that is from sugar, but it's not rum,
right?
Because it's maple syrup.
We've had these issues where a distillery years ago was using sorghum molasses, and somehow the TTB approved it as a rum. Of course, complete chaos in the rum category. We're like, we have one rule. Can you just stick with that one rule? It has to be sugarcane. And so, because molasses is a byproduct of sorghum, it felt like it could in that category. But I think that's actually the most interesting thing is innovating the categories that exist and making something because you're interested in it. I am leery of people that just do something because they can, and I know there's some wild ideas out there. But when someone says, hey, I've got this, I mean, that's the nature of everything is you have this product in abundance and you're going to do something to transform it. And then it becomes something new all of its own. That's cool. Yeah. So I've heard of that. That's cool.
I want to go back there and do the full setup now, but and see where they're at with that. Cause apparently they were making some news. I don't know whatever became of it, but I'll get a bucket of it.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing a rum class, I think next week at a really cool place in Baltimore. And my talk to text response to the owner said, yes, we're very proud to be the first crab distillery.
Oh.
And she was like, I'm sorry, you're in St. Michael's. Are you distilling crabs? And I was like, absolutely not. That was supposed to be the word craft because we were talking about 12 years ago. Yeah. And, but I'm pretty sure somebody sent me an article about that like a year ago that somebody was doing. So anything's possible. Yeah. Although, really it should be sugar-based in order to be fermented and distilled. But
I don't. I just want to try it because I can say I tried it.
See, I don't want to. It was the same way with the Dorito project, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Have you tried Malort?
Yes.
Okay.
But, Malort and Jaeger, these were just Amaros before their time.
Yeah. No, they're just... they really are. But I mean, I think as far as like a party trick, if I had someone who comes in and says, hey, this is distilled crab from Maryland.
Yeah.
It's like novelty. How much of that is like, why is Malort still in business? Well, it's because of the novelty.
Well, but there are people that love it. There are people that love it.
They're insane.
Don't say that in Chicago.
Well, I'm from Milwaukee and I hate Chicago. I'm on record for that. This is a Chicago sports fan right here. Anyway, what's the next?
Okay, so you had our core lineup that we've had since day one.
Yes.
And then I skipped our regular liqueurs that were kind of our first foray into infusing our white rum. And I jumped into three of our maybe rarest or most beloved. So the Anniversary Reserve is first.
Okay.
And they should be in a different order, actually. Let's do it like this. So the Anniversary Reserve, this rum we released on our 10-year anniversary. It was the one that was 2 years in bourbon barrels and 3 years in a Calvados cask. And it is, I think, the finest rum I've ever made. And the finest rum I've ever drank.
Oh, that's delicious.
It's lovely. It's so much ours. It does not taste twice as old as the Sailors. It's not that barrel, then you have this deeper. It's just a layer of like apple, Calvados, toasted. It's just kissed with that finish, and it's lovely.
And that finish, that lingers. That Calvados is right. Oh my goodness.
Our rum has a really long finish. I mean, it's even the white rum. And to me, that's also a marker of something I'm looking for in a spirit is that it stays with you. It doesn't just like hit and disperse. And that often happens with higher proof spirits. And all of our rums are a little higher than normal. Our white rum is 90 proof. Our dark rum is 90. The Sailors is 100. The Anniversary, I believe, was 104. Can't remember now. 2 years ago. And, but there's no shock and burn. There's kind of this awakening because the spirit's really soft.
Yeah.
And then it just hangs. And I credit, that to be the mark of it sticks with you, really, in a good way.
I'm really impressed with having found how well a Calvados barrel would have worked with that. That's such an interesting thing that I wouldn't, like, you put that on paper, I would go, Interesting.
Well, those are my two favorite things.
Well, and then,
If rum was not what I was making and not my mission in life, I would pack it all in and go to France and have somebody take me in and let me make Calvados with them. I love Calvados. It's probably the only spirit I buy on a regular basis.
okay.
On my bar cart at home is a lot of Lyon Rum, a lot of products that my friends make, and at least right now, at least 3 bottles of Calvados. I love Calvados.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a perfect, and so does our head distiller. So Brett and I thought, what better way than to let our rum mingle with some Calvados? So yeah, that was a really fun project.
So the next step is you can't call it Calvados, but making your own Calvados.
Right. Except, and we talked about it. We talked about, like, should we distill an apple brandy? But I don't want to spend 1 minute doing anything that isn't rum. So we had gone up to Laird's in New Jersey, which is the oldest distillery in the country.
Yes.
And back to that history, apple brandy and rum were both, the first spirits made in the United States, and they both have a very long history.
Yep.
And so we thought, what if we transitioned and started using some of Laird's American apple brandy barrels in our process? And so we have some experiments going on right now with some barrels that we've had for about a year. And we'll see how that goes. It's nice to keep domestic. I've lived all over the world, and I consider myself a citizen of the world, but being committed to American rum, we want to use as many American-made products and vendors, as possible.
Sure.
Because that's, to me, what it means to make an American rum is that our bottles are made here, our sugar comes from here, our labels are printed here. And so right now, all of our barrels come from New York. We work with my dear friends at Kings County.
Yeah.
All of our barrels come from them, and we're very proud of that. And so we thought this would be a nice synergy if we could find an American apple brandy to work with. So we'll see how it goes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. As a Wisconsin person, I do wish that there was more craft brandy.
Yeah, me too.
Because there's not.
Yeah.
They exist, and the ones that I've had are great.
Yeah.
But I love my brandy.
I love brandy too. And I think that it's really, there's an opportunity. So when people always ask me what I think is next or what people should do, I think people should focus on anything that is really regional and specific, or that excites them, or that has, if you tell me you're making, insert any spirit that exists in the major categories, and that's what you're doing, I'm like, cool, good luck. But if you tell me that you are making a unique brandy, or you're doing a recipe that comes from your grandmother's heritage, or that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, give me that. Like, that tells a story to me. So I love Amaros. I love infusions. I think that's really interesting because that's unique. So, but it's maybe a case that there isn't more brandy because people aren't drinking more brandy. So it's a catch-22. But there's a lot of great brandies being made, especially like in Oregon and Washington.
Oh, yeah.
Our friends at Catoctin Creek do lovely brandies, but they're known for their rye whiskey.
Yes.
So we actually talked about, I need to call Becky. I want to see if she's got any brandy barrels we could use in some of our finishing. So know that before she even knows that.
That's a good thought.
Yeah.
I love Becky, and she's also a fellow Wisconsinite.
Oh, yes.
So
we're on the board of ACSA together.
Yes.
And she's great.
Yeah. I recorded an episode with her before we were doing video.
Yeah.
So I want to come back and talk to her, but I love
She got lucky. She didn't have to be on camera.
I know.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry.
See how it is.
Well, don't worry. She's not off the hook. No. So we have 2 more.
Okay, yes. So these 2 are really fun. And I think the reason I poured these is because talking about what defies what we think of when we see a spirit and you hear, oh, this is something, you get an idea of what it's going to be. This is our pineapple rum.
Aha.
I always have to let people know it's our overproof pineapple rum. It's 114 proof. It's completely dry. It's unlike our other rum liqueurs that are under 40% alcohol and have sweetness and whole fruits. This is dehydrated pineapples, and it's finished on French oak, and there's no sugar. And so it's a straight pineapple rum, and it is awesome and unlike anything else in the world. And we don't make enough of this. And that's my real favorite these days because it's just great to sip on. And I will choose that all the time just to have a mini bottle in my pocket for when I like if I'm traveling and I land somewhere and like I want a good drink. It's a great one. I'm
a big French oak fan, especially for whiskey, and I love that flavor profile.
Yeah, it's a little more delicate, right?
Yeah.
It's more toasty, less vanilla.
So you said 114. Is there any thought, because it's not really your branding, but I know that's Navy strength for a lot of rum stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about having that as what's the calculus? And people think rum, Navy, U.S. history, whatever.
Yeah. No, there's all these markers for what is overproof, what is Navy strength, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Like I've had bartenders refer to our white rum at 90 proof as overproof because it's over 80 proof.
Okay.
I've seen overproof rums at different numbers. We release an overproof rum at 126 proof, but I don't think there's any standard, right? But 114 has kind of been the Navy strength. We've never really glammed to that. I don't have any ties to the Navy,
right?
But a lot of my friends now that are distillers are Navy men, and Navy women, so they're very much like that's their thing. And so I've never wanted to like co-opt too much history that doesn't feel like ours, or the way we settle on proofs these days is usually like when we first did the pineapple rum, it was let's try a bunch of them at 100 we kind of 90s are that's where we start, our barometer rather. And then we go up, and it's just, we do a blind. Like when we released the anniversary, it was splitting hairs between 102 and 104. But at the end of the day, it's like, we just kind of go with it. We don't do all this crazy beta testing. It's like, what do we like the best? What feels right?
No, that makes sense. I thought it might have been a dumb question, but you answered it in a good way.
It wasn't. It wasn't on purpose. It was just that was the proof that we settled on.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. And the last one.
The last one is our blackberry rum, because this is our wildest. This is the only one that we're able to use fresh, locally harvested fruit as an infusion.
Okay.
So every year for the last 7 years, we go to a farm about 30 minutes away, and we pick blackberries for about a week as a team, and then we infuse the berries right into our white rum. We infuse it for a couple of weeks, strain it out. We've started actually using like a wine press to really get the maximum out, but not have any of the fruit, because we like that skin contact. Yeah. But then we want to remove it, and we do one batch a year. So it's our only true harvest product. So we hope to have a batch every year, but it's all about if the batch is ripe, if we get it, if we can pick it. And the batch size varies based on the berries as well. So it's just beautiful. It's rich. It's almost like a port wine. You can use it as a vermouth in cocktails. Yeah. So when we talk about like all you need is rum, which has become my slogan, I've got a rum for my tequila drinker, my whiskey drinker, my wine drinker. It's, it's all over the place.
Yeah, that is very much like a port wine.
Mm-hmm. And it's still 33% alcohol. So it's one of our lowest. But the lowest product we produce is 30% alcohol. So our liqueurs are low sugar, high alcohol for a liqueur category. And I think change people's mind. So they hear, they're like, oh, a sweet berry rum. And I'm like, no. Yeah. Rich, deep, velvety.
Yeah, very,
rum.
Very good. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. It's sticky. Mm-hmm. It makes me think though. So I talked to Angel Rivera.
Yes, up in Puerto Rico. Yes.
And the whole thing with with Pituro and the steeping of fruits. And is that essentially the same process?
I think so. I don't know his process intimately, but that's another example of a distillery that I just absolutely adore.
Yeah.
They came in with such a specific idea and honoring a very specific style of rum. Yes. And I couldn't be more excited to have them in Maryland and to be able to talk. And we've actually done products, collaborations as well.
Oh, have you?
I sent our finished white rum to them once, and they infused it with their tamarind, which is my favorite thing they do. I love tamarind.
Yes.
And so, such unique flavors. And so someone once said to me, I said, I loved their tamarind rum so much. And they're like, well, why don't you do a tamarind rum? And I was like, because that's their thing. Like I can enjoy something and not have to make it myself. Like I make what I make.
Right.
It always blows my mind how people think that just because you like something or admire something someone else does, you need to make it or try to best it.
Yeah. No.
Not the case.
I have a friend who's actually from Puerto Rico who lives down in North Carolina by me. And he had their traditional clandestino.
Yes.
And that was before I talked to Angel. And he was pouring it for us. And all of us who are all whiskey nerds were like, this is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. And that was, God, it had to be probably 2+ years ago. And that was one of the first things that tripped me up. I was like, oh, rum is good.
Yeah.
I like rum. Anyway, so this reminded me of him because all they do is just
just fresh. And then the color is beautiful, right? Like people often talk about the color of our liqueurs. And I'm like, well, that's because it's made with that actual thing. Right. We do a curacao, and 9 times out of 10, people are like, why isn't it blue? And I say, because oranges are orange and we put orange peels in here. So it's the same thing. But yeah, Puerto Rico has a beautiful color lineup because it's fresh fruits. Yeah.
Why isn't it blue?
Mm-hmm. We don't use the blue.
Just start dying.
Well, and it was interesting because then, some bartenders do want that blue spirit.
Well,
and
sure.
so now there's natural ways to do it. But for me, it just didn't, I liked that it's orange. It's beautiful,
No.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate how enthusiastic you are about your product.
Thank you.
It is awesome to see your pride and your tender loving care, and especially in this new space that I know has been a work in progress, and it's here, it's ready, and it's awesome. So kudos to you and all you do. I appreciate you having me here, and I obviously I'm sure I'll see you at the conventions that are coming up.
Yeah, next month, right? Yeah, in March.
So,
Tucson, sunny Tucson.
I know. Mm-hmm. I had to pay for those flights, and my wife's not happy.
It's work. It's work and research.
I'm writing it off. But no, I really appreciate.
No, thank you. Thanks for your enthusiasm, because I think there's two things. I'm always really surprised when someone thanks me for like my passion and my enthusiasm, because to that I just say, if someone is not incredibly enthusiastic about the thing that they are offering you to put in your body, don't take it.
Right.
If you're not excited about it, why should I be? We have so much choice right now. And so it's an honor every time somebody wants to, trust in us to try our rum, to enjoy our rum, to share our rum. And I often say, especially like we're talking about innovating and doing new things, that's fun. And I think it definitely keeps you creative, but to continue to produce the same thing year over year for over a decade and to have people love it and choose it as their favorite.
Yeah.
To me, that's my metric of success. It's like, I want to be your new favorite rum. I don't want to just be the rum you have and then you try another one. And there are things that are interesting to try. And we had done some experiments like that, especially when we did an unaged corn whiskey, simply to be able to talk, because we love education.
Sure.
So to be able to sit in the tasting room and say, here's what an unaged whiskey tastes like, and it can taste good.
Yeah.
Kind of like we do with white rum now.
Sure.
It's nice to open people's minds, but I don't know about you, but I've bought a lot of bottles in the past where I bought it to try it and then it sits with 95% of that bottle full. And I don't want to be a research bottle. I want to be a loved bottle.
Yes.
So.
Well, like I said, I had your dark rum and I finished it.
And if people call it the liqueurs, they're like, how long did they last? I'm like, well, their shelf life isn't indefinite. Like all of our rums are high proof and they're not going to spoil. But
right.
If you open it with people that like to drink, they're not going to last long. They're going to disappear.
Well, I have a friend who's he's a Scotch nerd, and he has all the expensive, nice limited releases from Ardbeg and whatever that. And like, cool. He has that, and when we come together and do a bottle share, I bring all the craft stuff that's here that he doesn't know about. And of course, I love my Scotch.
Yeah. But
he has it. So now we come together, and it's like, yeah, it's a 2-year-old bourbon, or it's a young whiskey, but it's also really good.
Yes.
So anyway, that's a totally irrelevant, but I'm losing my train of thought. I'm going to stop us from talking. No.
Stop us from ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jamie, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. This is great.
We'll see you soon.
Yep.
Cheers.
If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate a follow and share on social media, subscribe to our YouTube, and be sure to give us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Everything you see and hear is out of pocket for us, including travel. If you support our mission of showcasing the amazing stories behind these small businesses, do me a favor and head over to buymeacoffee.com/craftedconvos. Buy Me a Coffee is an awesome way to help creators like me with simple one-time donations or a monthly contribution. Every dime goes into giving these breweries, distilleries, and more some much-deserved limelight. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. Cheers!